Hello and welcome back to my channel. It has been a while since I have sat down and done a video, so I'm very excited. I know I'm very late to doing my best and worst of 2022, but 2022 was such a crazy and fun year. I got married, we bought a house, I went out of the country for the first time. That was fun. And we have also been renovating our new home. So that being said, I have been very busy and unfortunately BookTube has just kind of taken a back seat. However, I have still read some really great books and I want to talk about my favorites and least favorites of 2022. So starting off, let's just start with the negative. Now these are not necessarily bad books. I call them my most disappointing because a lot of them I was just expecting more from them. First off was Final Girls by Riley Sager. I have read Home Before Dark and Lock Every Door. I think I gave Lock Every Door 4 or 5 stars and I gave Home Before Dark 4 stars. So I went in with some pretty high expectations and I just really did not like this one. I found it a little bit predictable and I don't know, I wasn't really into the story. Also, I'm going from like least disappointing to most. I didn't say that, but that's kind of the list that's happening. Next up was The Risk by Elle Kennedy. I read The Deal last year, 2 years ago, in 2021 I think. And I really enjoyed 2 of them. 2 of them I gave 3 stars. So they weren't bad, they were just my 2 least favorite in the series. However, I was obsessed with The Deal and the score. Everyone had just said such great things about Jake Connolly and the book, and so I went in thinking it was going to give me the same feelings that The Deal and the score did, and it just didn't. I am not sure if I'm just growing out of Elle Kennedy's writing a little bit, but I found some of the writing kind of cheesy, and the characters were just very fine. Like there was just nothing that outstanding about them, so I don't know. I ended up giving it, I think, 3 stars. It was fine, but I had just been expecting so much from it. All right, next was a holiday romance, and I sometimes think that I'm a little too hard on holiday romances because they always make my least favorites of the year. However, I just heard so many great things about this one and I really did not like it, and that was 'Tis the Season for Revenge by Morgan Elizabeth. Yes. I hated it a lot. I don't know. It had been compared to Legally Blonde so much, and I love Legally Blonde. And so I was just expecting a very cute holiday romance, and it just wasn't. I didn't like the characters. I thought that the story, well, there was really no plot. I mean, it was a lot of spice, and I understand the Legally Blonde reference since she is trying to make an ex jealous because he dumped her because she just wasn't, you know, serious enough. But other than that, that's kind of where the comparisons stop. It is just a lot of spice. It's a lot of just nothing, and I didn't like it. Okay, this one is going to get me a lot of hate, and I'm sorry. It is completely a me thing, but it is There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. In case you're wondering what this is a serial killer romance. So I don't really know why I thought that this would be a book for me. It really doesn't sound like anything that I would enjoy, but I had just heard so many rave reviews and I wanted to see what the hype was about, and I just didn't really like it. I realize how dumb I sound when I say that the guy just wasn't likable and I didn't see any redeeming qualities in him, because he was literally a serial killer. But I don't know, just not for me. I might read the second one just to kind of see if, you know, there was something I was missing. Maybe I just wasn't in the right mindset, but I think this is one that is just not for me. So that being said, I'm not saying this book is bad. I'm saying I was not the target demographic for this book. And if you know me, the next one will be such a shock, but it is Layla by Colleen Hoover. I was expecting Verity. It's not, and it doesn't claim to be. So again, me problem. But it was very weird, and I did predict what was going to happen. And so it just wasn't really my cup of tea. I still gave it like 3 stars. It's just the fact that it had Colleen Hoover's name on it. I expected so much more from it. So I don't even know if this would be on the list if it were from any other author, which probably isn't fair, but just being from Colleen Hoover, I was really hoping to love this one as much as I've loved her other books, and I just didn't. The next one is Swear on This Life by Renee Carlino. This had been compared to It Ends With Us, which is one of my all-time favorite books. So I really thought I would love it, and honestly I did. I really, wait, do I have it right here? Oh, I do have it right here. I wasn't gonna dig out my books, but I have this one oddly enough right here. I tabbed a lot of it. I really enjoyed the beginning part. So if you don't know, this lighting, I can't look. I can't even see the book. Okay, I'm gonna put it down. If you don't know what this book is about, it is about two kids who had very traumatic childhoods, and they find comfort in each other and come to each other when times are very hard and when they just need someone to rely on. Our main character, I do not remember her name, Emmeline, she comes from an abusive household, and her friend comes from a household where just things are just a little rough. Very reminiscent of It Ends With Us. And then the guy ends up becoming an author and writes a story about their childhood and just details that are so similar. She's reading this book and she was like, this is me. And so she eventually finds out that he has a book signing, and so she reads the book, meets him, blah blah blah. However, I really did not like the guy as an adult. I thought that he was just very rude, and also I didn't like that he just spilled secrets of her upbringing without ever asking her or talking to her about it. He changed the name, but still, that's just so personal, and I would be so just, I don't even betrayed if someone that I really trusted had written my deep dark secrets about my childhood. I just think that that would be really inappropriate. So I did not like him, and I thought that the ending was very rushed, so that was very disappointing. But I loved the chapters from their childhood. I thought that that was so well done. It's just the ending was so disappointing. Next, I know is a popular book with a lot of people, but that is Darling Venom by Parker S. Huntington. I really did not like this one at all. It had a lot of weird similarities in the beginning to November 9, just with these two meeting on the same day every year, and there is a fire that is like a big part of the book, and that was just weird. I mean, I wouldn't say that the plot is the same, but just those weird similarities were really throwing me off. But yeah, I just really didn't like the story. I wasn't the biggest fan of the characters. I don't know. I thought that the book was going to go in a much different direction than it did, and yeah, just not for me. Okay, don't hate me for this next one, but it's Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. I loved Punk 57, and so everyone talks about how Birthday Girl is so much better, it's so much more fun, and so that's what I was expecting, and it just did not deliver. I don't know, just maybe age gap, I just like really shouldn't read. I don't know if it's just like a little weirder, but to me, which I don't even remember his name. What is his name? Pike was his name. Pike is just like a dad, like he's a fatherly figure, and so I wasn't like attracted to him. Like, he was just a dad. Like, in any other book, he could have just been like the dad that's just there, but instead in this book, he was the love interest. It was just very weird, and I don't know. I mean, her boyfriend, ex, whatever, did suck. Like, I wasn't rooting for them, but I just didn't really see a connection with Pike. Like I said, he was a dad. He was fine, but like, I don't get this obsession with him. Okay, we are making it down this list. The next book, speaking of Punk 57, is the reason I read it. It is Dirty Letters by V. Keeland and Penelope Ward. First off, the cover is just, it's a man, but also why did they have to Photoshop this pen in his hand, this large pen? It is just so unnecessary. It was very rushed. I didn't really feel the connection between them at all. The characters were very just one-dimensional. There was just nothing about this book that I really enjoyed, and it was short, which is why I finished it, but honestly, it just had nothing in it that I really enjoyed. Everyone said if you loved Punk 57, you would love this one, and I understand the similarities with the Pen Pals, but the Pen Pals, it's such a short part of the book, and it is just not, like, their relationship is not really developed enough to feel that emotion between them. Like, in Punk 57, we saw it so much more, where this, you're just kind of told that they were really great friends and that they could rely on each other, and all of a sudden they're back in each other's lives. So yeah, don't recommend that one. And finally, I'm not even going to call this my most disappointing. This one I will call the worst book that I read of 2022, and that is The Words by Ashley Jade. I hated this. I hated everything about it. It was so bad. It was 570 pages of just I hated it. And you know what's funny is the beginning, I really loved it. I was so hooked. Back when they were in high school, they met in high school. She was his tutor, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, but it had me so hooked. And I liked that he was, you know, this kind of like troubled boy. Like, I really thought I was gonna be into it, and I just wasn't. This book claims to have plus-sized representation, and while it does, she loses the weight like very quickly. And even though the guy likes her before, that's kind of like when she comes back into his life, like, she's skinny and like everything, I don't know why that was necessary, really. That's not the only thing I didn't like about this book, but that was one thing that I found weird. The guy was just awful. The thing that happens between them, so they're two friends kind of romantically involved in high school, and then something happens and then they go their separate ways and meet up again. So I really thought it was going to be like a childhood friends to lovers situation. However, it was so horrendous what he did, and I don't think I could forgive him. Like, she just, like, I guess he has to work for it a little bit, but he's so awful, and I hated him. And I disliked him so much that it was making me dislike the girl because she liked him. Like, I was like, do you not have any morals? I don't know. I really hated that book. So we can forget about those, and let's move on to my favorites of 2022. I feel very passionately about these, by the way, and so if you dislike them, same with the other books, if you liked them, like, I'm happy. I thought I would like them, but if you dislike any of these, just, you know, you can let me know, but just be nice. You know, these feel like my babies. I love them. I cherish them. So number 10 on the list is Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman. I loved this book. I thought that it was so funny, and I loved so much about it. I was so roped into the story so quickly, and it really reminded me of, like, if Emily Henry and if Taylor Jenkins Reid wrote a book together. Like, it had the humor and the romance of an Emily Henry with the just, I don't know, depth of a Taylor Jenkins Reid book. Like, I really loved it so much. Number 9 is It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. I've heard very mixed reviews on this book, and I really understand all of them. I mean, when this book was first announced, I would have thought it would have been like number 1 on my list. I really thought that it would live up to It Ends With Us, and while it didn't, looking back on it, I completely understand why it doesn't. It Ends With Us, to me, and I have said this so many times when defending my love of that book, I don't think it's a romance. It is a story about Lily and her strength, and I just very much look at it as like a fiction book. And I know that the love triangle or love interests really kind of take over in that book for a lot of people, and myself included. I love Atlas with every fiber of my being, but looking at It Ends With Us, as a book, it's not a romance. And so when Colleen Hoover announced this, I was so excited because we finally got to see Lily happy and in love, and we finally got that romance portion of it. And so that's what It Starts With Us is, to me at least. It's just the romance that we didn't get in It Ends With Us. Not that you need it, but a lot of people wanted it. And so I loved seeing Lily and Atlas happy. However, I agree that there really wasn't much of a plot. It was just kind of them living life and dealing with the effects and aftermath of It Ends With Us. And I really enjoyed seeing that and kind of getting to see their happily ever after. I don't know, I'm very torn with this book because while I understand the criticisms, I truly loved it. It made me laugh, it made me smile, it made me cry. Actually, I don't think I cried. Next is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I actually have a reading vlog on this book and I really enjoyed it. I really related to Nora. I did not love it as much as People We Meet on Vacation, which is such an unpopular opinion. I don't know why everyone hates on that book, but I think Book Lovers might be my least favorite Emily Henry, but I still loved it. Like, I hold Emily Henry to such high expectations that just because it was my least favorite, I'm not saying it's bad. I loved it with my entire heart. It's actually what I want to reread going into it, knowing now that it's so much more than just a romance. I think that might have been part of my problem with it at first. I was so conflicted because I was loving it, but it just felt like something was kind of missing. But I really ended up loving it and I want to go back and reread it. I don't know. It's just one that I've been sitting thinking on. Like, the more I think about it, the more I love it. And I think I would love it even more on a reread. That's what I'm trying to say. Number 7, The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I will scream on every rooftop to read this book. It is so good. It is the closest thing to Verity by Colleen Hoover that I've read. Like, the eerie, creepy feeling, the constant like unwell feeling. Like, I just loved it so much. I couldn't guess what was going to happen. I mean, constantly I was sitting there trying to think of everything and I never fully got the twist of it. And I don't know, it was so good. I recommended it to so many people and the people that have taken my recommendation have liked it so far. So do with that information as you will. But if you are looking for a creepy, twisty book that's a little reminiscent of Verity, just very easy to read, very easy to digest, but also just so creepy and keeps you on the edge of your seat, The Housemaid. So good. Number 6 is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. This was a phenomenal book. I usually read celebrity memoirs through audio. I love listening to them tell the story. However, I put in a request for both the audio and Kindle just to see which one I could get first. And I happened to get the ebook first. So even just reading it, not having her tell the story, was so incredible. And there's so much that you don't know. Like, it's very weird hearing a story from a childhood actress that you grew up watching. And there were so many things that I remembered. Like, I loved iCarly, but I also remember her music career. Like, I remember her like country music, and I would sit and watch it on YouTube, and her covers that she would sing. Like, it was kind of coming back to me as she was saying it. I was like, wow, that was part of my childhood. Like, I was one of the people watching those. It was really sad to hear about the behind the scenes of it and to hear that, you know, it wasn't as glamorous as maybe we had all thought it was. It was crazy, the things that she went through that, I mean, you would never know about. You just have to read it. There's not really much I can say other than that it is very sad. It's very hard to read at times, but it's a great book and I'm very glad that I got the chance to read it this year. Number 5 is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. I loved this book so much. It was so good. It's a childhood friends to lovers to strangers to lovers kind of situation, which is my favorite. I love a childhood friends to lovers, and this one was no exception. There are definitely some heavy topics in this book, so trigger warnings for those, but I really loved it. I think that this is the most unique Christina Lauren that I've ever read. I always say that Christina Lauren and I have a love-hate relationship where I either love the book or I just really dislike it, and this felt like such a different story from them. You know, it wasn't too cheesy. Actually, I didn't find it cheesy at all, but it wasn't cheesy. It was just such a beautiful, great story, and I really loved it. It's so good. I loved Elliot. I loved Macy. It was just so good. Number 4 is Say You Swear by Megan Brandy. I read this actually in December, so at the very end of the year, and it still made my list. I have honestly not stopped thinking about it. It is a college football sports romance, and I loved it. Like, this book it just kind of, I don't even know how to explain it without giving away spoilers, but I went into it completely blind, and I think that's how you should. I didn't really know any of the twists or tropes or anything in it. I knew that it was a sports romance, but other than that, I had just seen people on TikTok talk about how it made them cry, how Noah Riley is just an absolute king, and they were right. It's so good. Yeah, I can't say enough about it. It is a pretty long book, but I flew through it, and I have not stopped thinking about it, so I think it's worth the hype. Highly recommend. Go read it. And number 3 is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This was so good. So good. I have a vlog of me reading this. I cried. It was such an amazing book. Like, this is the perfect example of a book that made me like laugh, smile, cry, just all of the emotions that I could have. I had them in this book. It is such a perfect book where like nothing is black and white. Like, I could understand every side of every character's perspective, and I'm trying not to give things away, but it's so good. It has beautiful quotes in it, and I love it. I actually used a quote from this book at my wedding on our memory table, so it is just a very special book to me. I love it. Number 2 is Addicted to You by Kristen Becca Ritchie. I love this book with my whole heart, and I'm so sad that I've not finished the series. One of my goals was to finish the series last year, but I made the promise to vlog every single one, and since life got so busy, I didn't, and that's why I've been putting them off. And I think about them constantly though. I think about the books all the time and how much I want to read them. So I'm going to get on it, I promise. But this one definitely makes my top 10 of the year. It is such a beautiful story. I loved hearing about or learning about Lily and Lo's addictions, and I mean, that sounds weird to say that I loved it. I didn't like the hardships that they were going through, but I think that it was just so well done. We got to learn so much about them and understand them, and we got introductions to Lily's family and the other people that you know are going to be important in the series as it continues. And I just think it was a perfect first book, and it made me so excited to read the rest of them. I did read Ricochet, but that's where I stopped. Like, I have not read any of the others. So a goal that I have this year is to finish all of them. I'm so excited to read them, and I've loved them so far. I just haven't vlogged, and that's a pathetic reason not to read it, but that is my reason, so I'm sorry. And finally, my number 1 book of the year is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas. I read the first 3 books in the ACOTAR series this year, and I loved it. I loved them. They were so incredible. I think that they definitely live up to the hype, but this book right here is truly a masterpiece. I cannot even put into words. Like, I vlogged it. I did vlog this book, so if you want to see my reactions there, but it is just so wonderfully done. I loved every single character. I love the romance. I love the story. It felt so high stakes. It's so just, oh, it was so good. It was so good. Again, it's the second in a series, so I cannot give too much away without completely spoiling things, but it's so good. And if you've been putting off ACOTAR, afraid that it's not going to live up to the hype, or you just don't really enjoy reading hyped books, you should. It is so good. It's so worth it. And I'm excited to read A Court of Frost and Starlight and A Court of Silver Flames this year. So stay tuned for that. All right, I feel like I've been talking a mile a minute, but those were my best and worst books of 2022. Let me know in the comments what your worst book and best book were this year. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you hopefully soon in my next video. Bye!